guys, Todd Anderson back today alongside Braun-Duin.
Yep.
We're doing another playtest video for you guys. Today we got something special for you. We're going to start playing with cards from Return to Ravnica. Brian, what do you think about the set so far?
I mean, from everything I've seen, the set is pretty awesome. So I really can't wait to actually start playing it for real. So
yeah, so we're going to be playing two new archetypes today, and we're completely eliminating, obviously, all of Scars of Mirrodin and all of M12. And we're going to be focusing on standard. Even though we don't have all the spoiler yet, we're kind of working with bits and pieces, but it should give you guys hopefully a little bit of new information, some new stuff to watch. But today I'm going to be playing with a new Delver variant, and we're going to be playing Red, White, Blue Delver. So let's go over the deck real quick before we get started. All right, so first off, you can tell that the deck looks pretty similar to the old versions of Delver. You have Delver of Secrets, Snapcaster Mage, both X4, Geist of St. Traft X4. And then we have a new creature that's not from Return to Ravnica, but that we're just playing because I think it's pretty good. And with the power level of zombies, I think that it's going to be a really big player in Standard, which is Knight of Glory. And
yeah, I mean, black-green zombies seems like that's going to be like right out of the gates, one of the premier aggressive decks in the format,
right.
And just having something main deck that just brick walls that deck.
Right. And I think that the Exalted is very undervalued with that guy, and
Agreed.
Hopefully today we'll get to see just how good that is. But the biggest change is obviously we're losing Ponder, we're losing Gataxian Probe, Gut Shot, Vapor Snag. We're losing a lot of the core cheap instants and sorceries from old school Delver, and so we have to use some of the newer cards as well as some cards from Avacyn Restored and M13. But let's take a look at those real quick. First off, we have Mizium Mortars. That's the new removal spell from Return to Ravnica for red. A 1 red and 1 to deal 4 damage to target creature as a sorcery that you don't control. And then for 3 red and 3, you can do Overload, which is basically turns into a quasi-bonfire with the damned.
Yeah.
What do you think about that card, Brian?
I mean, I think that card is insane. I think that's going to be like the premier removal spell from the set.
Yeah, I agree.
4 damage to a creature for like 1 and a red is pretty good value. Like, that's just a solid removal spell in general. Like, it kills a Restoration Angel, kills pretty much most creatures in the format, and then just the Overload is basically like once you hit 6, you wrath your opponent's board.
Yeah, but continuing on, as for new cards, we have 2 Izzet Charms, which are incredibly versatile. I really like Izzet Charm a lot. I think it's either my second or first favorite charm.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to kill a creature is awesome. Countering a non-creature spell is sweet, or is instant or sorcery. Sorry. And then if you draw too many lands, you can still filter your hand and turn them into real spells.
Yeah.
So, and then we have a Singleton Cyclonic Rift from Return to Ravnica, and this kind of acts like an Into the Royal / Vapor Snag / a card similar to that, but also has the upside that if you hit 7 mana, it just becomes a one-sided upheaval effect, which is really interesting, especially with cards like Geist of St. Traft. So,
right, yeah, I think that card's very good.
Yeah. Filling out the removal, we have Pillar of Flame and Flames of the Firebrand, which should be seeing more play now that cards like Gutshot aren't in the format anymore. We have 3 Unsummon, 2 Negate, just because we kind of need some counter spells, and you don't want to get obliterated by Bonfire of the Damned, and a couple of Negates can help against that. And then we have 4 Thought Scour, which is pretty much the only cantrip left to play, which is kind of embarrassing. But
yeah. You know, there's hope that there'll be something else maybe in Ravnica. We still haven't seen the rest of the set.
Sure, but I think the taste that Ponder left in a lot of people's mouths, maybe that was a little too much for them, and even if they had one that they were wanting to print, maybe they even cut it from the set, you know.
Yeah, or maybe like Izzet Charm and Azorius Charm kind of filled that role.
Right, yeah. Right. But the mana base, I think, is where the biggest change comes in. We're very easily able to play 3 colors thanks to the return of the Shocklands. And in our version, we're playing Hallowed Fountain and Steve Vince because Sacred Foundry isn't legal yet.
Right.
But it's pretty much guaranteed to be in the next set, which is awesome. And then we have 4 Sulphur Falls and 3 Glacial Fortress. We're only playing 3 Glacial Fortress because we don't have that many white cards in the deck. And we have 3 mountains to help us cast our Pillars of Flame on the first turn. I wanted to point out the Cavernous Souls obviously only cast creatures, but we tried very hard to build the deck to not have too many white spells that weren't creatures, so that way Cavernous Souls was effectively a blue-white dual land that could, come in on turn 1, casting Delver, and then cast a 2, Knight of Glory, or a sideboard creature on turn 2.
Right.
The sideboard, I think, is pretty straightforward. We have 3 Jace Architects of Thought, and he's obviously the new Jace, and I think that he's pretty awesome. I'm not quite sure how good he's going to be in our deck. I think he's much better in a control shell where you really can do a lot with the extra cards. Not to mention his +1 is incredibly relevant because you're killing all of your opponent's creatures like every turn.
Yeah.
This deck has a lot of removal, so maybe we'll get a little bit of crossover from that kind of game plan. We have a pair of Sleeps to help out against the green-based decks, 3 Spectral Flights, which I want to put on Geist pretty much always. And now that there's no Phantasmal Image, no Fire Extinct Metamorph, people aren't going to be playing Clone. So Spectral Flight on the Geist of Saint Draft is going to be big game, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Like that interaction is like very powerful without Image or Metamorph in the format.
Yeah. We have a 3rd Negate, a 1st Dissipate as extra counter spells for control, 2 Smelts to help out against artifacts, as well as 3 War Priest of Thune to help out against pesky enchantments. And I think it's important to note that War Priest of Thune is also human, so Cavern of Souls can help cast him as well. But all right, so that's Red, White, Blue Delver, and we're going to go ahead now and move on to Brian's deck, which is...
All right, I'm playing Black, White, Red tokens, and this deck was a big player in Block Constructed before they banned Lingering Souls. Basically, this was like one of the top 2 decks along with Junk tokens.
Which is Black, Green, White.
Which is Black, Green, White. Yeah, those were the 2 big decks before Lingering Souls was banned.
Yeah, pretty much. I remember pretty much every week you were just like crushing Magic Online with some form of Lingering Souls deck over and over again. And I don't want to say that you got Lingering Souls banned, Brian, but if not, you helped significantly.
Yeah, I definitely played many block dailies with Lingering Souls, and I love those decks. They were a lot of fun to play.
Yeah, they were very hard to beat. There weren't a lot of sweepers in the format, especially not cheap ones. And even if you were able to play a sweeper, your opponent could just flashback Lingering Souls, and then they still have 4 more power that flies and has vigilance. So
right,
it was really tough to grind them out.
Yeah, plus planeswalkers like Sorin and Garruk made that tough too.
All right. So let's go over your deck real quick, Brian. Give us a rundown.
So the main thing that makes this deck viable, I feel, is Blood Crypt. Actually, is probably the most important card from Return to Ravnica, because one of the issues in Block with this deck was the mana base.
Yeah, I remember that.
You couldn't necessarily guarantee the ability to cast a Hellrider, or you couldn't always flashback. Like, Black was just a splash. You couldn't always guarantee the flashback on a Lingering Souls.
Right.
But Blood Crypt really helps a lot because I'm playing Clifftop Retreat, Isolated Chapel, and Dragon Skull Summit.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a lot of those.
Yeah, all 3 of those come into play untapped if you have a Blood Crypt in play.
Okay.
So, and it's possible that the mana is still not great. Like, you may need to wait for Godless Shrine and Sacred Foundry out of Return to Ravnica.
Those will definitely help it, but since they can always come into play untapped, I think those lands are always going to be very powerful in Standard. So hopefully, when the next set comes out, this deck might be even better.
Right. The mana base will definitely improve then.
Right.
But this is definitely going to help the mana out, and so that's the main thing. And then the deck is basically just like your standard token deck. You have Gather Townsfolk, Lingering Souls, Midnight Haunting, and Intangible Virtue, and that's kind of the core of the deck.
Right.
But to go with that, Hellrider is kind of like the big finisher, because you generate so many tokens, and then you play a Hellrider, and now all your tokens do an extra damage every time they attack. And Hellrider's amazing for killing planeswalkers. He's a pretty good threat by himself, just haste damage. So that's kind of the call of the deck, is just a very aggressive token deck.
Yeah, and if people, it doesn't seem to me like there's too many really good instant speed removal spells at the moment.
Right.
There's Brimstone Volley, Murder, maybe Unsummon, but other than that, I mean, there's some that won't see a lot of play. And there's no more Celestial Purge. There's no more Dismember. There's not a lot of easy ways to actually kill.
Right.
And there's no more Doomblade, no more Go for the Throat.
Yeah, all the cards that really kept Hellrider down are just gone. So I think he'll be a pretty relevant threat, and the same with Falcon Wrath Aristocrat.
Right.
That's the other 4 I'm playing, and I think Aristocrat's really awesome, especially in this deck because you have Doom Traveler, Gather the Townsfolk tokens, so you actually have humans too, so she can actually get big.
Right.
And all the tokens provide a constant stream of fodder to keep her alive from anything that doesn't reduce her toughness.
Right.
So
Tragic Slip, I think, will be the most important answer for her specifically.
Right.
But I don't think Tragic Slip's very good against you because that's really the only creature that it kills profitably.
Right, and even if I get an Intangible Virtue out, it doesn't even kill a token anymore.
Right.
So, without being morbid.
All right, so what new cards from Return to Ravnica are you playing?
So the new cards from Return to Ravnica I'm playing are Mizium Mortars, which we talked about in your deck.
Right.
Which we both agree is a very strong card. And I'm also playing Dreadbore, which
which one is that one?
That is the new black-red spell that destroys target creature or planeswalker.
Oh, that sounds pretty spicy.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about that card because it's just kind of no holds barred, kills anything. Cards like Jace are going to be a problem for this deck, and
having access to Dreadbore seems like you just take Jace to town.
Yeah, you just take him to town. Like any planeswalker that could really, because planeswalkers can grind this deck out sometimes,
right.
But Dreadbore is just like a perfect answer to that.
Yep, and I mean it also answers very annoying creatures like Restoration Angel, Flip Delvers of Secrets, things of that nature. So I think that'll be pretty good to watch. But so is Blood Crypt the only new land that's in your deck?
Yeah, that's the only new one in my deck. And the other new card from Return to Ravnica in the sideboard is Rakdos' Return, and that is
Rakdos or Rakdos. I don't know how to say it. The apostrophe S on top of the S at the end is confusing, and I've seen plenty of people complaining about that one. I don't remember which one's aesthetically correct.
Yeah,
so.
I think my high school English teacher probably just wants to murder me for what I just said there. But
Sure.
And anyway, Rakdos Return, basically the new Blightning, and I think this card is going to be like a big player out of the sideboard.
Right.
Like I don't see it being like a big main deck card, but this is going to destroy control decks. Like you can destroy their hand and like kill a planeswalker with the damage, or you can use it just as a burn spell to finish them. It's basically like Blightning.
Yeah, I think that the comparison to Blightning is pretty fair, even though it's way more mana intensive. But the games where you flood out, it just seems like way more powerful.
Right. It has such a bigger upside.
Yeah, I mean, like even like your opponent can have a Tamio at like 5 loyalty. And if you just happen to have flooded out a little bit, you just get to eliminate the rest of their hand and kill their only source of card advantage in play, which is pretty sweet.
Right.
But yeah, is there anything else you want to talk about the deck, or are you ready to get started?
The only other thing I want to mention is that I have a couple of Thundermaw Hellkites on the board, and I think this card is going to increase in value significantly.
I agree.
So I think Lingering Souls is going to be much more played, so I think Thundermaw Hellkite also is going to become better as a result.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I guess I'll maybe try to pick those up before this video comes out.
Hey.
Insider trading.
Yeah. Scumbag Todd Anderson.
All right. Well, we're going to be getting into the matches in just a minute. We're doing, over the videos, we're doing commentary today to give you guys a little bit more insight. It keeps the matches we play a little more pure. We don't give away too much information while we're playing, and we're able to talk about our hands at length and our plays at length to give you guys a little bit more information on the subject. But we're going to get into game one. I won the die roll, so I'm going to be on the play.
Yep.
All right. Well, in this matchup, starting off, I thought that I was pretty far behind as far as overall card quality. Me versus Brian, I felt like just him having Lingering Souls in his deck would be very bad for me. Traditionally with Delver decks, you were kind of a dog to anything with like Intangible Virtue and Lingering Souls in it. Like if you remember playing against any of the mid-range token-based decks that had Drug Skull Captain and those kind of cards in it, I thought that the Delver decks were always a little bit worse.
Yeah.
Just like the straight Delver decks.
Yeah, Lingering Souls is like pretty good against Delver, and I think it's even better now than it was because you don't have like the Vapor Snags, the Gut Shots anymore that you had before. So
it's a little bit worse off. But let's take a look at opening hand. You'll see a Mizium Mortars, Negates, Snapcaster Mage, Pillar of Flame, and Flames of the Blood Hand. I think that this hand's pretty sweet, so I'm going to keep it.
Mine's 7 non-land cards, so it's auto ship for me.
Yeah. So with this hand, I'm kind of looking to negate maybe his first play. If he plays like an early creature, I can just Pillar on 1 and then hold up Negate on turn 2. I want Flames of the Firebrand. I think I said Blood Hand a minute ago, but Flames of the Firebrand I think is going to be very awesome against him. It basically negates a lot of the inherent advantages that generating a lot of tokens can gain you. If I am able to hit 6 mana, the Mizium Mortars could come into play as well with the overload cost. So.
Yeah, Flames is 3/4 of a Lingering Souls, which may not sound like much, but that's actually a good bit. So,
So what about this hand, Brian?
so this hand is not great. That's a Dreadbore right there, and I have 2 lands and a Lingering Souls, and I have
No
2
red, though.
Hellriders and no red. But I'm gonna keep on the power of Lingering Souls. Basically.
Yeah, I mean, if you draw a land, the Lingering Souls is going to be virtually,
Right.
2 to 3 cards depending. But so I draw a Hallowed Fountain. I don't really want to take damage yet, so I'm just going to play the Mountain and hold up for negate.
And I had drawn the Dragon Skull Summit, so that puts me in a good position.
How lucky! And I saw you also drew Midnight Hunting, but I'm going to continue playing lands tapped and try not to take any damage. Hallowed Fountain tapped. I drew a Thought Scour, so at the end of my turn, or at the end of Brian's turn, I'm going to look into Thought Scouring, and let's pause here for just a second, because this was actually a really hard part for me, because when you passed on turn 3, I actually just had the gut feeling that you had Midnight Haunting,
right.
And so I wanted to not Thought Scour and hold up for negate, but since I had Flames of the Firebrand, I thought that even if you were able to generate like a decent number of tokens, I might be able to deal with them anyway. And I kind of needed to draw into like at least one more land, and I kind of want to dig for a little more aggression because my hand was very defensive at the moment, and I don't think you can be very defensive against tokens. So I decided to go ahead and Thought Scour.
Right, and here I thought Todd was holding open an Is It Charm. I didn't realize he had Negate in his deck, but just holding open blue-red suggested Is It Charm to me, which is why I didn't want to jam my Midnight Haunting. But I'll play it here in response to his Thought Scour since he can't counter it.
Right. So we mill over a couple cards, don't matter. I think I'll land in a Delver. Yeah. Draw into Delver. All right, so now we can play the Delver and hold up for negate, which I was pretty happy with. So I have the Mizium Mortars. Obviously don't want to burn that on a token. He has a Hell Rider, so we're looking at using that in like a turn, I guess, to kill the Hell Rider, but I considered for a second playing the Hallowed Fountain untapped, so I had the option to like Delver and Flames of the Firebrand, but I wanted to get max value out of my Flames.
So here with my hand, I could play a number of things, but with him holding open Hallowed Fountain Mountain, to me that suggests he has either Is It Charm. I didn't realize he had Negate, but Is It Charm, and since that can't counter a creature, I wanted to make sure, use this opportunity to jam Hellrider.
Yeah, so I take 3 from the Hellrider's triggers, and then I take 5 more damage overall, down to 12. I don't block, I don't really have an instant in my hand that's worth casting. I want to make sure that I get some value out of my Snapcaster Mage, and since Mizium Mortars is, unfortunately, a sorcery, it's good, but, it obviously has its drawbacks, which you could see right there. So
right, and that's...
Here we get the Flip Delver, which is sweet, revealing an Unsummon, and this, I think, is going to go a long way to helping me kind of secure my board position. My plan here is mortaring on the Hellrider and then holding out for negate still in case he has Intangible Virtue or another token generator.
So him flipping that Unsummon there basically makes the other Hellrider in my hand feel a little bit worse, because... Right. Now I know that I can't just jam it and get in a ton of damage like I did with the first Hellrider.
Right. Unsummon becomes basically Time Walk, right? Like, I don't draw a card, but I tap you out. You have like a do nothing turn.
So I just draw another land here, and I decide to go with Dreadbore over Hellrider because I don't want to just waste a turn doing nothing.
Right. And you can also Lingering Souls.
Right, and I can also play Lingering Souls in the same turn, which sets me up for an even bigger Hellrider the next turn.
Right.
So,
and obviously I don't know that you have the Hellrider, but I am fairly safe from it thanks to the Unsummon. But I want to keep my Delver alive. It's not only staving off his Spirit tokens, but it also gives me the ability to apply pressure in a few turns if I need it. But him casting this Lingering Souls here felt a little bit backbreaking, especially considering that he's going to have virtually 6 tokens over the next couple turns, and this Flames of the Firebrand is only going to be able to deal with 3 of the 6 tokens.
Well, you do have Snapcaster Mage. So.
I do, but I need another land before it becomes entirely relevant. So,
yeah, I felt pretty good about myself here with the Lingering Souls tokens. I didn't realize he had Flames of the Firebrand, and that ends up being kind of backbreaking.
Yeah, I think my play here ends up being Flames of the Firebrand killing 3 tokens, and then I hold up for Unsummon, to make sure that I don't get beaten down by Hellrider or anything like that. And I also have the option to just kill a token if I want to make sure that I want to like Snapcaster Mage Mortar and then Mizium Mortar, the Hell Rider, as opposed to just bouncing it and letting him replay it.
So I drew another land here. I'm kind of flooding out, but since I have nothing else to do, I'm casting Hell Rider. If he wants to burn the Unsummon on it, that's fine. I have no other plays that I'm going to be making other than flashing back the Lingering Souls. So
So I decided instead of hitting the Hell Rider and quasi time walking, I just go ahead and take the 4 damage from it, and my plan now is to just Snapcaster and Mizium Mortars. But he flashes back Souls, and I draw a land. And so now we get to do a couple of pretty awesome things. Hopefully you might get to see how powerful Knight of the Glory is. With the Exalted, he's not going to be able to double block and trade with the Delver of Secrets. And I also have the ability to just pillar one of the tokens if I don't want. Like here, I think I play Snapcaster Mage and Mizium Mortars on the Hell Rider, and then Pillar Flame a Spirit token, and then that allows me to attack for 3. And if he cracks back, I'm only taking 1 damage as opposed to 2. So we do a little takesies backsies, but it's okay in playtesting.
Mm-hmm.
So we kill this guy with Mizium Mortars, Pillar the token, and bash for 3. This sends Brian to 14, which puts him into a reasonable attack range over the next few turns. So
at this point, I'm just hoping to draw a Bonfire every single draw step.
Yeah. You're only playing 2, though.
Yep.
Should be playing more, maybe.
I don't actually think so because I don't have any kind of ramp, and I feel like Mizium Mortars kind of hedges as well.
Sure.
Regard.
But all right, so I think here I didn't really want to trade my Snapcaster Mage for his Spear token. Since we're racing, I have so much removal in my deck that I think that since I'm gaining the Exalted trigger from the Knight, it's worth it to just attack with the Delver for 4. That way, if I draw any Snapcaster Mage or any removal spell, I just kill your token, then I'm guaranteed to deal at least an extra 2 damage.
Right.
But, it's kind of questionable because on the next turn, I decide to just attack for all 7 points of damage.
So I actually think, if we pause here for a quick second, I think there's an interesting discussion about whether I should cast that Gather the Townsfolk. Because being at 10 life, if I go down to 5 or less, I get 5 creatures out of it.
Right.
Which could be pretty relevant. But being at 10 and Delver doing 4 damage with an Exalted attack, I felt I needed to cast it now.
Yeah,
in case you had a removal spell.
And also, like, if I just attack with the Delver again, like I did the last turn, you go to 6. Which means that you're basically in the same position that you were in the turn before. And then if you take it again, you're at 2, and then you're dead to any Snapcaster Mage, Pillar Flame.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what my deck's, you have Brimstone Volley, Bonfire, anything like that. So, I mean, that's a pretty good argument. I definitely think that casting it right there is correct, since I have the 4 other 1 toughness power of creatures sitting in play.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that was the right play. So.
I think if I was at 9 life, though, I think I would have waited.
Because then if I hit you for 4, then you get 5 guys on the next turn.
Exactly.
It just, the math was a little bit off. So.
But I think that is an interesting thing to think about when you're playing that card. Yeah. Sometimes, yeah. But, yeah. And I decided to play the land in my hand because if I draw Bonfire, I want to be able to max it.
Right. And, I don't think there's any reason to hold the land in your deck other than just to bluff Midnight Haunting, but I'm always going to be attacking. So.
Right.
So I attack for 4 again, and I think Brian has the option to chump block here or to take it, and I think that you end up blocking here. Can you...
I end up taking it here, and my reasoning was I wanted to basically calculate how much damage I can deal if I draw a Bonfire.
Right.
And I needed to have all 3 of those guys in play if I do draw the Bonfire to kill you.
Okay, sure.
So that was my reasoning.
Sure. All right, so you go down to 6, and you top decked was that Dreadbore?
Dreadbore, yep.
All right, so you top deck Dreadbore for my main threat, which is the Flip Delver, but I still have a decent amount of pressure in play, and I think here we're going to see just how powerful the Exalted trigger is, because now, anytime I attack with a creature, you have to double block in order to kill my guy.
Exactly.
And I think that's very important, because now I get to trade my Snapcaster Mage for a full Gather the Townsfolk or a full Midnight Haunting or something like that, which... I mean, you obviously do there because I have Flames of the Firebrand in my graveyard, so any Snapcaster Mage or another Flames or Brimstone Volley kills you. So.
Right. And I think it's interesting to note that when I drew that Dreadbore, if that had been a Mizium Mortars, I would have Wrath your board.
Yeah.
So, maybe that that's a good indicator that maybe I should just be playing Mizium Mortars.
Right, just like maxing out a Mizium Mortars.
Right.
So you end up chum blocking, drawing a bunch more land. But I drew a couple lands too, so no complaining over there. I know you're not.
Yeah.
But so here we get to flip the Delver, revealing, I believe, Is it Charm? Okay, and I think this shows just how good Is It Charm is, because this is, I think, probably going to be the least usability of the 3, which is the draw 2, discard 2. And since he's at 1, I'm just digging for a burn spell, and I draw a Pillar Flame, and I'm able to kill him right there on the spot. So.
Right, you have 2 extra lands that you're never going to need, and you get to turn those into real cards.
Yeah, and I think that like in a lot of games and a lot of situations, the draw 2, discard 2 is going to be really good for a deck like Delver, where you only need a finite number of lands to function. And after a certain point, like, all the lands are just dead cards, so it's basically just a draw 2.
And Delver also tends to play cards, at least old school Delver played cards like Gutshot, which are just dead in some matchups.
Right.
And like you have cards like Unsummon, which could be the same, and it lets you turn those into like, if you're playing against a control deck, you could turn your Unsummons into maybe Dissipates or something.
Right. You have more counterspells, more threats. So.
Right.
All right. Well, we're gonna play one more game, pre-sideboarded. And then we're going to move to sideboard after that. So we'll be back for the second game in just a second. All right, so we're back for game 2. Brian's going to be on the play. Let's take a quick look at his opener and see what's going on.
Yeah. So this opener is something I'm not terribly happy about. Double Doom Traveler, Gather the Townsfolk, and some removal spells. And one of my lands, Dragon Skull Summit, comes into play taps.
Yeah, but you can always go Traveler into tap Dragon Skull Summon. That's not too bad. So.
Right, and that's exactly what I plan to do. So I ended up keeping this hand. I have ways to kill his guys, and I have a little bit of...
The one in the middle there is Mizium Mortars, right?
Yeah, I have Mizium Mortars and Dreadbore. So.
Okay, so my hand's pretty sweet too. It looks very similar to the one last game. I have Mizium Mortars, 2 Pillar Flame, Negate, and a Snapcaster Mage, and some lands. So I take 2 from the Steam Vents to go ahead and pillar his guy. Since I have a Snapcaster Mage in my hand, I feel like I'm going to be able to get a little bit more value out of the pillar in a few turns, and then hopefully start attacking, and I want to keep the Doom Travelers off the field. So.
And pillar is actually a great answer to Doom Traveler as well. Just I don't get the spirit out of the deal.
Yeah. So I decided to pillar the second one too, why not? I drew a Hallowed Fountain, which I played tapped, so I didn't take any damage.
So I work on lands here and just play the Gather the Townsfolk, and I have Intangible Virtue, but I like to get the creatures out before I play the Virtue, just in general. Now here maybe I should have played the Virtue first because Todd has counters, but I ended up wanting to get like a little bit of damage in. So
yeah, I think
and I want to note here I don't cast Intangible Virtue because Todd's representing Counterspell by just not casting anything.
Right.
And I don't want to run, like, basically my best card into his counterspell.
Right. So I drew Cavern, and I have a pair of Mizium Mortars in hand, and I really want to overload those, like, pretty much on back-to-back turns, but I really need to get some pressure on the board so that when I hit 6 mana, I'm actually able to capitalize on the Wrath effect. Unfortunately, I haven't drawn a Geist of Saint Traft yet. I'm sort of just dirtling, and... I feel like I'm kind of falling behind. I want to buy myself a little more time, so I decided to go ahead and pillar a token. Even though it's card disadvantage, I think that it's basically going to end up saving me about 3 to 4 points of life, which is going to be important.
So I drew a second Intangible Virtue, so I cast it because at this point I'm just going to start jamming them every turn until one of them resolves. So.
Yeah. And since he's stuck on mana, I think it's safe to negate there. Now... I think I made a huge mistake here by not holding up for Snapcaster Mage and just waiting on another land. But since you played the Virtue, I thought that I was safe to not have to hold up for the negate anymore. And I really just wanted to have like Snapcaster Mage to go with the Pillars of Flame over the next few turns. But I think that was definitely my biggest mistake this game. So
yeah, when I see that he doesn't hold open for Snapcaster Mage, negate, I'm definitely just going to jam that second Intangible Virtue. And I'm still missing lands here, but my hand is so good that...
your hand is just... I mean, obviously it's insane. When you're not drawing lands, like...
You're drawing spells, yeah.
You're drawing... And all of the spells in your deck are just very powerful, like Bonfire, Lingering Souls, etc.
Right.
So
once I start... eventually I'll start drawing lands, and in that point I will, be able to start basically like taking advantage of this game, and the fact that I'm still at 20 here is huge.
Yeah.
It gives me the time I need.
I haven't been able to put any pressure on Brian, and the lack of cantrips and like ways to gain early card advantage that the old versions of Delver used to have. Like I just don't have that luxury anymore. Like I don't have Ponder to sort of have that filtering. And it's just putting me in a bad spot.
So I drew another Virtue here, but I wanted to... I had a feeling he had Snap Negate, and I wanted to bait it out with a Mizium Mortars when I already had another piece of removal. So
Right. So I decided to negate it because if I flip my Delver, which I do, I want to have like a decent amount of pressure. I drew Thought Scour. I go ahead and scour myself trying to dig for the third red source and 6th land so that I can blow everything up. I drew a Knight of Glory instead, and I think we just play that and attack with the Delver for 4.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Pretty much my plan here is to try to get in the air with the Delver, and then once he overcommits to the board, if I draw a red source, I can basically overload the mortars and blow up his whole side of the board. So,
yeah.
So Brian, did you hit a land? Is this the turn where you hit the land, or was it the next turn?
I think it was the next turn I hit the land.
Okay, so I don't know if holding back here was the right play for me. Like I think I should have blocked with the Snapcaster Mage right there, because if you draw a land, like you have access to like Bonfire, Flames of the Firebrand, all these cards that just blow me out with all my 1 toughness guys. Luckily, I end up drawing a Pillar of Flame, which I use to take care of your Doom Traveler. So.
And the thing is if you're gonna trade with my token here with this attack anyway,
right? I should have blocked.
You should have blocked because then you take 2 less. Because I get and that's one thing with Intangible Virtue. You almost always just want to attack because it's just as good as blocking. Like you get in a damage and you can still block.
Yeah.
All right. So I finally draw the land, and I just have to jam this Lingering Souls.
Yeah,
I felt like he probably had a counter, but he didn't. So.
Yeah, and I really just wanted to draw a land from Mizium Mortars here, and just blow him up and attack for 7. But instead, I drew a Thought Scour, and the Thought Scour draws me into a Sulphur Falls, which is nice because it sort of disguises the fact that I can Mizium Mortars him next turn. But Brian makes a really good play next turn by not flashing back Lingering Souls, and by him not doing that, I immediately put him on Midnight Haunting, and I kind of just lost my cool for a second, and I was like, no, I had you so bad, I just wanted you to overextend. So here my contemplation is attacking with the Snapcaster Mages to trade with the tokens, but since he's at 11, and I'm okay taking the 4 damage down to 5, and then next turn just playing the Mizium Mortars, blowing up everything, and attacking him for 7 down to 4.
So here you see that I have multiple bonfires in hand. I end up drawing the Midnight Haunting. So I don't want to play into a Mizium Mortars, so I hold up on Midnight Haunting. If I had not drawn the Haunting, I probably would have just cast Bonfire for 1 and killed his 2 guys, so that if he overloads Mizium Mortars, I don't just die.
So I overload Mortars, and I opt to not attack, which in hindsight I think was incorrect, because I probably should have attacked and maybe even forced him to block, but the fact that he has like bonfires and all these other things, like I'm basically just dead. But he ends up drawing a land, which allows him to kill my Delver and then burn me out.
Yeah, I draw the land. I have Dreadbore in hand that I've had all game, so I get to kill his Delver with my Dreadbore, and then with the second Intangible Virtue, I can do 6 to him.
Yeah.
And kill him,
So I think I misplayed a couple times there at the end. I should have been attacking more aggressively with Snapcaster, or just trading off with his creatures, more willingly. But I think that the overload on the Mizium Mortars was really clouding my view. Like I really just wanted to maximize the amount of damage that I could deal.
Right.
So, all right. So we're gonna take a look at how we sideboarded real quick. Personally. For this game, I felt like in this matchup I wanted to have like a few counter spells, but not a lot of spot removal, so I didn't want cards like Unsummon and Pillar of Flame, and I wanted instead cards that had a larger impact on the game, such as Jace and War Priest of Thune, which takes care of your Intangible Virtue, which is a huge problem, I think, for me.
Yeah, Intangible Virtue is one of probably one of my best cards, if not the best card against your deck, because it makes every spirit trade with a Lingering Souls or a Geist of Saint or a Delver or Geist of Saint Traft.
Right. So. And I think that Sleep is probably okay. I'm not sure how good it is, though, I think I don't cite it in for game 3, but I think I do cite it in for game 4. But we'll go over that in a second. So how do you sideboard?
So I end up just bringing the 4 Pillar of Flames. Having seen Knight of Glory, you have like Knight, Snapcaster, and Delver as like pillar targets.
Right.
And so I end up wanting to bring these in, and I want to cut 1 piece of removal for it. So I cut 1 Dreadbore. My other 2 cuts are 2 Doom Travelers and 1 Mikaeus the Lunarch. And I actually think Mikaeus is really bad against the current Delver decks.
Right.
But without having Vapor Snag anymore, I think Mikaeus actually is okay.
Right.
I don't want to have too many of them, but I think leaving 2 in is fine and cutting the 3rd. And then Doom Traveler I feel is pretty weak because you have Pillar of Flame, and you can also just kind of ignore him a lot.
Yeah, just like get a flyer.
Just get a flyer, just not take, he has to sit back on defense, and like you can just not play into him. Whatever it works out best for you. So,
Right,
I end up cutting a couple of Doom Travelers. And I'm not entirely sure about this board plan. Maybe I should cut all 4 Doom Travelers.
It's possible.
And bring in, and like keep the Dreadbore and bring in something like my Falconwrath Aristocrat or something else out of the board to just have more pressure against you.
Right.
So.
All right. So we're going to be starting game 3 with me on the play. Post-sideboard games, I think, become a lot more grindy since you have a little more removal, and I also have Jace, and hopefully Jace will prove how good he is, because I'm pretty sure that he's bananas.
I agree. Yeah, I think Jace is significantly better than Vraska, and the prices are like reversed on the two.
Yeah,
so.
but I mean, people, I guess, have like the last Jace was like super hyped when it first came out. It's like, oh, he can mill you out. He has card advantage, and his ultimate's kind of weird and crazy. And then, he just ended up seeing like very little play, like sideboard play sometimes in Delver decks. Kind of similar to like Tamio, and I think maybe people are kind of afraid to invest in this Jace, but like I really think that in a dedicated control deck, this Jace does exactly what you want it to do, because your spot removal is going to be killing their relevant large threats,
like
and then
your
the +1 is going to be negating all of their small threats.
Yeah, your Dreadbores and Murderers and stuff are going to take out their Wolfie or Silverheart, but then
Right.
they're like Llanowar or Arbor Elves are going to be beating you down or
Right.
whatever, or Strangleroot Geist, and this card just like
Yeah, it
really
forces.
friks
It also
them off.
just forces them to overextend, too,
Right.
which is really good for a control deck. And even though I have it in my Delver deck because I just wanted to try it out, but I'm not sure it really works a lot with the current game plan that I'm working. But since it feels like it'd be really good against tokens, that's why we brought them in. So, all right, so we're gonna be on the play. We'll go ahead and take a look at my opener here. All right, and we have a Delver, a Cavern, and a bunch of spells that I can't cast, so I think we ship it back. Even though, like, I can turn 1 Delver, this is not a format, I think, where you can do that anymore. Like, 1-landers are very difficult to keep now that you don't have, like, so many free spells. And especially so when it's a Cavern of Souls. But your hand looks pretty sweet.
Yeah, I snapped this one off so fast. Like, that was basically like the perfect. I had Lingering Souls, I had Mikaeus, I had a Hell Rider. I just had everything I needed here. I didn't have any removal spells, but when you have enough tokens, you don't care about killing your creatures.
Right. I mean, it's not like I'm playing Invisible Stalker.
Right. You're not playing anything that I have to kill. You're just. I can always trade with things if they get out of control.
Yeah.
But yeah, my hand was excellent. I find it. This is the hand you want to see every game.
Yeah. So my 6 is keepable. I have an Azet Charm, Mizium Mortars, Negate, and 3 land. Like, it's not good. I need some pressure, but I think that maybe these kind of decks need to play more creatures now that they don't have access to Ponder and Gitaxian Probe. Like, they're not playing, 56-ish card decks now that they don't have Probe. So your threat density is, like, a little lower. Luckily, though, I do top deck a Knight of Glory to give me a little bit of pressure. So.
Right. And so I have the option here. I actually think this is an interesting decision, and I'm not positive which is correct. I can either play Intangible Virtue or I can play Mikaeus the Lunarch on 1. And Intangible Virtue is better if I resolve my Lingering Souls next turn, but Mikaeus is better if I don't. And I end up opting to go with Mikaeus just to get him out there earlier to start, building him up. But, if you have a removal spell, this is a worse play, but if you have a counter spell, this is a better play. So
Right.
I'm not entirely sure which is correct here, but I like getting Mikaeus out early.
All right, so I decide to just play my Sulfur Falls tapped, attack for 3, and hold up for negate since I can't cast my charm, and I don't really want to burn on mortars just yet. And I figure negate's gonna handle most of the cards that he can play. I think you end up playing Virtue here, right? In that what you play.
Yeah, you're holding up in what I believe to be like a fairly obvious counter, and I don't want to lose my Lingering Souls, since I think I had maybe a second Virtue or something, or I had the Machias. Like, I'd rather you counter this than counter my Lingering Souls.
Right.
Since I have Machias and stuff.
Even though I'm not sure if I should have countered it or not, because I have the War Priest of Thune in hand, but now, like, negate is just kind of stuck in my hand because I don't... Like, I really want to cast spells and also hold up for other things. But I think here I decide to play the Delver off the Cavernous Souls since it's on human and just hold up for Charm and negate.
I actually considered pumping Machias and blocking there just to trade. But since I have the Lingering Souls, I think it's...
Yeah, okay. So I ended up playing Mortars and Delver, which I think was a pretty big mistake. But I think I was really afraid of you playing Midnight Haunting at an awkward time for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then, just having a bunch of like 3/3 flyers for a turn or two would have been kind of bad for me. So the Mizium Mortars might have been a little greedy. But again, during the games, like, obviously I don't have perfect information about your hand.
Right.
Not really sure what you have exactly, so...
So I drew Pillar of Flame here, which is basically the perfect draw to go with my Lingering Souls.
Yeah, no kidding.
And I choose to kill the Knight of Glory because he is basically a big pain and makes it so that, like, my tokens aren't nearly as good on defense anymore.
Right. So,
yeah.
I don't think I flipped over here.
I don't think you did.
I think I just drew, like, Geist of Saint Traft. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I have the option to War Priest of Thune, his Intangible Virtue, or just hold up for negate. It's really awkward because I want to flip Delver, but I also want to draw a land, not only to cast the Geist, but so I can play a spell and have a counter spell on backup. And I'm doing neither of those things, and I'm drawing creatures that don't do anything.
So here I have the option between Hellrider and Falconwrath Aristocrat, and I end up jamming Aristocrat because next turn I can play Hellrider and just do, like, huge chunks.
Yeah,
and
all your big spells having haste is really bad for me.
Yeah, and I think it's better to play Aristocrat here as well because if you have sorcery speed removal, this is like a much more resilient play.
Right.
And you happen to have Is It Charm and a sack a token.
This feels like maybe a bad use of Is It Charm. Like, I probably should have just used it to draw 2 last turn, or maybe during, like, at the end of turn, because this Geist is not really looking too good, and the negate's not doing anything against the Aristocrat. But honestly, I don't have anything in my deck really that deals with Aristocrat at the moment. Like, Jace doesn't bounce it or anything, and like, honestly, like, my plan at this point was to just grind out your tokens, which obviously is a bad plan. But I had nothing else. Like, I don't have Unsummon in my deck anymore, and I don't have anything like Tragic Slip, Celestial Purge, or the new Detention Sphere, which I kind of want to try out, which that card seems like it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that card seems amazing against both tokens and just as an Oblivion Ring. Like,
yeah.
No.
But, your hand looks like it's just going to gas me.
Yeah, it is. My hand is insane here. And I opt to flashback Lingering Souls and play Intangible Virtue rather than go with Hellrider. Because I felt like you might have had Unsummon. I didn't realize you had boarded them out.
Right.
And this also protects my Aristocrat better. So.
Right. So I don't think there's any card I can draw that can really get me out of this. So the card I looked at did not flip Delver, and so we pack it up. But we get to be on the play again, at the very least. This is where I change my sideboarding a little bit, I think, for Game 4. I decided to bring in... the Sleeps and the Dissipate, and I felt like Negate was maybe a little too situational, and I didn't want 3 of them. It's still a fine card, so I cut one of the Negates, and I also decided to cut the Is That Charms because they're a little harsh on my mana thanks to Cavernous Souls, and I wanted to have access to, like, big spells against you that could break the game open, but by doing so, now I'm playing 5 cards that cost 4. I'm making my deck, like, a lot
much clunkier.
Yeah. So my draws are probably going to be a little less smooth, but having Sleep seems like it's going to be pretty nice.
Yeah, and I ended up not changing anything. Although in hindsight, I believe I should have brought in the other Aristocrat and taken out probably another Doom Traveler, or one of the other Machiases.
Right.
And just because Aristocrat seems very good, so.
So what happened in game one was that I was able to use a lot of spot removal to sort of kill all of the tokens that were blocking early, and this allowed me to apply early pressure and keep you from really getting a foothold in the game. And by adding cards to my deck like Sleep and Jace, Jace in particular is a lot more defensive, and I don't think that I can be defensive against you because you're always just going to overpower me.
Right, like eventually
so,
I'll have a Virtue or a Hell Rider, and I can.
Right. And so I think I just misunderstood the role of Jace in my deck against you, and honestly, it probably shouldn't even been in my deck to begin with, let alone like come in against you. So I end up wanting to try Jace out, and I think this is where I really figured out just how not good Jace was against you.
I actually think Jace is pretty good against like a control deck too.
Like I mean, he's just like Factor Fictions twice or whatever.
Right.
Or mini Factor Fictions.
And like if that control deck's playing like Lingering Souls, they can't even kill it. Like,
right.
Yeah.
So my opener is 5-land Jace and Snapcaster Mage. And I felt like, since I had all my colors, if I drew, a big spell that made Snapcaster Mage a little bit better, this hand would get really good really fast, especially because of how powerful Jace is against like a naked token draw. Like if you don't have a Hell Rider or an Intangible Virtue. But I mean, maybe that was kind of a pipe dream, and I think maybe I was just running a little bit on tilt, but I want to just see if Jace was good enough by himself.
Right.
So, and sometimes in testing, you just keep hands that you want to see just how good a certain card is, and obviously Jace cannot win a game just by himself against you because you have so many things that enhance your tokens. And
right, and I even have a Dreadbore there too. If I need to, I can just Dreadbore the Jace.
Oh yeah, okay. I mean, and that's something that I need to, that everyone needs to remember really, is that Planeswalkers are no longer safe on a dry board.
Yep.
Yeah. So we decide to +1 the Jace, which means that all of his attacking creatures next turn are going to get -1. But since the Hell Rider deals a damage per attacker, and it's got basically
3 power.
It's 3 power, which gets shrunk to 2. But so he's going to be able to deal 5 total to the Jace, which kills it, unfortunately. So
right, it's exactly 5 damage, which is pretty convenient, and I can actually see that. I see that being a relevant interaction in upcoming.
Yeah, I mean that really shows, I think, how powerful Midnight Hunting is, because it went from dry board to being able to potentially deal me 8 total damage. But since I had +1 to Jace, you were just able to kill the Jace. So
yeah, I went from dry board to dealing you 8 damage, and sorcery removal can't stop any of it.
Right.
That's very powerful.
Yeah.
And now here I have a bonfire for 2. It's just
Yeah.
a huge blowout.
So yeah, I played a Geist and a Knight, and like my draws were pretty good from my opening hand, but I just got annihilated by Hell Rider and Bonfire. So here I just have to sleep, I think, to prevent 8 damage since I'm at 10. And I have a Snapcaster Mage, which I may be able to top deck Elysium Mortars to get out of it. But if I don't draw Mortars, I'm pretty sure I'm just dead. So
I have Aristocrat here, and I get to do another 5 to him, 4 from the Aristocrat, and 1 from the Hell Rider trigger. Yeah. So now he's basically dead to, even if he overloads Elysium Mortars, I get to keep my Aristocrat.
Yeah.
And
it just, I mean, honestly, at this point, it just doesn't matter. So I just like try to sleep him, see if I get one more draw step out of it. But my draw step doesn't yield anything, and I'm just dead. So.
Right, and I have a Gather the Townsfolk, so I can pump my Olivia to 5 power even if you had Elysium Mortars.
Yeah.
So.
Or your Aristocrat, not Olivia.
Yeah, my Aristocrat, sorry.
Yeah. So I think the last couple of games have really shown how the matchup usually plays out, whereas you just play these 2-for-1 type cards, and I'm playing these 1-for-1 type cards. And not only am I like getting out carded, but I'm getting out boarded.
Mm-hmm.
Like the board just gets so big so fast, and I don't really have a way to catch up other than like an overload of Elysium Mortars, and there's just not like a whole lot that I can do. And I think that maybe that just is how the Delver decks are going to play from now on, where since you don't have that same level of consistency with like Ponder, Snapcaster Ponder and stuff like that, your deck's going to be just like much worse than it used to be, and possibly it's just not even close to good enough anymore. So
right, I mean, I think I wrote about this in an article a few weeks ago. That I don't think Delver's going to be a huge player in the metagame.
Yeah, I mean, it was irrelevant, block constructed.
Right. Delver was completely irrelevant, and all the decks that could have played Delver didn't because, like you had mentioned earlier, maybe you just want to play more creatures.
Right.
And, like, the more creatures you play, the worse Delver becomes.
Right, and same with Snapcaster Mage, but I can see still wanting to play Snapcaster Mage even if you're only playing, like, 16 to 18 instants and sorceries that you can flashback.
Yeah.
But you should almost never play Delver if you have less than 20. It feels very gross to only have 22 with no ponders. I played a lot of Modern with Delver, and he's just not nearly as good in Modern as he is in the current Standard, and it's only because of Ponder.
Right.
Like, Serum Visions is not even close.
Yeah.
But this game ends up being a little bit of a Debbie Downer, but it actually turns a bit interesting at points.
Right. We both have a kind of pretty weak hands.
Yeah,
here,
we both mulligan our 7. Like your hand, I guess.
My hand was a one-lander. So.
Yeah, I think mine was Cavern, Mountain, and then blue spells. And like I could cast Delver, but then I was never casting Geist of Saint Traft. Or at least not.
And it's going to be rough for you to cast Jason Sleep. Like you're going to have to hit islands to cast those.
Yeah,
so.
And so I throw that one back. Yours was a one-lander. Toss that one back. I think I mulliganed my 6-2. I'm not really sure what was it. I think it was just a no-lander on 6.
And I ended up keeping my 6, which was a one-lander again, which was a little, like, sketchy, but it was double Intangible Virtue, Gather the Townsfolk, and Micaeus.
Yeah, that seems fine.
So,
I mean,
and it was a Mizium Mortars as well. Right?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, since you're on the draw, like, one land lets you play your entire hand, which is awesome.
Right.
And then, not only that, but cards like Mizium Mortars and Gather Townsfolk can buy you more time to get to your later game spells and lands. So, my 6-card hand... let's take a look. I think it was actually a one-lander, but it was like one-land Delver and then like 2s and 3s, but no instants. Like it was like Geist, Snapcaster Mage, and like stuff I couldn't cast. And since like obviously I'm not playing Ponder anymore, like I can't keep one-landers. Like you just can't keep one-landers that don't do anything anymore.
Right.
So
you don't have Probe, you don't have Ponder to draw you out of it. So.
Yeah, like it's just so risky and.
And Midnight Haunting, I guess, was the other card.
Sure.
Yeah.
So my hand is one land, Geist, Dissipate. Oh, I didn't even. Yeah, never mind. I didn't even have a 1-drop. It was Snapcaster Mage. What's the new one? The bounce spell.
Cyclonic Rift.
Yeah, I had a Cyclonic Rift, a Snapcaster Mage, 2 Geist, and a Dissipate. So that one is kind of trash. But all right. So looking at my 5-card hand here. It's not bad at all for a 5-card hand, and especially on the play. I'm going to lead with a Delver and off of the Cavern on Human, and hopefully I can flip this and just ride it to victory because my hand is obviously pretty weak against like a normal token draw, and since he mulligan, I'm hoping maybe he has a kind of weaker hand.
So I end up drawing a land here, but it comes into play tapped, so I can't cast anything.
Yeah. I end up flipping Delver here, I think. Or no, this was, let's pause here for a second. On top of my deck was a Jace, and in my head, Jace was still very good in this matchup, and in my deck in particular. And so I wanted to keep it, even though I desperately needed to hit like a land and possibly some other things. But in hindsight, I 100% should have thought scoured myself.
Right.
I really want to turn on my Snapcaster Mages, and I need another land to do that, since we don't have free spells anymore.
Yep.
And the Jace is not going to do anything for a while, and giving me a random draw instead of having to draw the Jace would have just been far superior.
Like the best thing you can draw here is land, so if it's not a land, you want to send it away.
Yeah. So definitely a mistake, but again, I think I was just wanting to see how good Jace was, and I end up never being able to cast it, unfortunately, but no big deal. So we mill over a Mortars, which would have flipped the Delver, but we still don't draw a land. Draw a Geist of Saint Traft instead.
So now with him not having the ability to counter something, I just want to... I actually think I waited here and I played the Gather the Townsfolk I had drawn.
Yeah, and you did draw one land, but you didn't draw a third land to curve out perfectly.
Right, I didn't draw a third land here, so I just played the Gather and, put a little pressure on. And since I have the Dreadbore as well, I now have 2 pieces of removal for your Delver,
right.
Which is why I felt safe not killing it here. Because even if you have a counter spell,
Yeah,
You have to have 2.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. And again, we don't flip Delver. I think I drew another Geist. What was it? Oh, it's another Jace. Oh yeah, that's why I wanted to throw up, because I drew another Jace after I didn't mill away the first one, and I just felt really bad. But I hadn't drawn I didn't mill over a land though, so I think that like regardless of what I had done, I don't know if I would have been able to play myself out of this game. But my mistakes were definitely costing me, and I mean it's pretty evident to see that like in hindsight I definitely should have milled over the Jace and. Maybe not cast the Delver on like turn 1 and just wait till turn 2 so I can maybe cavern on, human or on spirit or something like that. But we end up getting to flip the Delver, which is nice, with a negate even. So now we're kind of losing the race against the 4 power of his soldiers, but I can potentially flash in a Snapcaster Mage just to block and trade to slow down his clock.
Yeah, and I continue bricking on lands here, and since I know he has the negate, I just end up playing Machias here post-combat, rather than
trying to counter something, or trying to
rather than trying to kill his guy or play another intangible virtue. I'd rather make you waste your turn. So
yeah, I mean I think that's a smart play. Like when you're positive your opponent has a counterspell and they're kind of strangled on mana and having to sit back on that counterspell for threat of just dying, like you're really putting me into a bad spot. And my spot is so bad that I have to play a Snapcaster Mage just to put enough pressure into play so that I can potentially force you to block and race me,
right,
or deal you enough damage where that if I kind of am able to draw out of it, I'll have a chance to actually kill you.
So I actually think here I probably should have blocked with Machias, just to keep you on a 3-turn clock from my 2 tokens.
I mean, that's a good point, and I actually didn't even consider that.
Yeah, I didn't consider it at the time, but yeah, it looks like that would have just been a better block for me.
Yeah.
I ended up missing land here again, but since you tapped out for your other Delver, I know you can't negate my play, so I'm going to end up killing your
flip Delver.
Right. I choose to play the Mizium Mortars here, I believe, since Dreadboard's a little more...
Yeah, it's a little more versatile. Although I think since you now have Knight of Glory in my deck, I think you actually should have flip-flopped it, because since I'm stuck on 2, it's very unlikely that you're going to be able to kill a Jace with it.
Right. And
being able to kill a Knight of Glory, I think, is pretty good. But we get the flip Delver again.
It's actually a valid point, yeah.
Yeah. I briefly considered main phasing the Thought Scour just in desperation mode to dig into a land, although I think that would have been incredibly greedy and probably would have ended up losing me the game on the spot. So, like, if I miss. If I hit, I look like a genius, but like, you just can't gamble like that. Like, it's one thing to gamble with Ponder, where you get to look at the top 3, and if you miss, you get a random draw. But when you're just Thought Scouring, like, it's just so much different.
So I draw another Hell Rider here. Just, we're both still missing on lands, still on 2 lands, both of us.
Yeah. And as you can see, like, if one of us had drawn lands, we would have just been so much farther ahead than the other.
Yeah.
But the fact that neither of us drew lands, we're sort of just like binking off of each other, trying to inch small advantages here and there.
Yeah.
So I'm playing old school Magic.
I ended up main phasing a Gather the Townsfolk there. If you didn't negate it, then I can activate Machias' ability to put counters on all my guys. Right. But since you did, then I'm just going to attack for 4, get in as much damage as I can.
Right. So to spread around the me hating myself for not drawing a land, we drew the Flames of the Firebrand, which can kill you on the spot if I draw a red source. Just kill you on the spot as long as my Delver can hit you for 3 more.
Yep.
And I was just like on monkey tilt, because I hadn't drawn a land off of like a Thought Scour and like 6 draws. Just
yeah.
I mean, but I couldn't openly complain during the game, because you weren't drawing lands either, Brian.
Yeah.
So
I finally draw my 3rd land here, and I just kill his guy, because even though I could like play something else to put a little bit more pressure on him, like I just have to get that Delver off the board. Yeah. With being at 6 life.
I played the Snapcaster Mage there to make sure that I didn't lose like the race, so that my Delver could potentially kill him, but it turns out like it just didn't matter.
And then I ripped the 4th land for the Hellrider to finish it off. So
So we had a really good hand, but we had 4 or 5 dead cards, so wasn't much of a game until one of us drew lands, and Brian's hand was obviously better than mine because he could cast spells. But I mean that's one of the problems with playing like a deck like Delver with a bunch of Cavernous Souls and also 3 colors in general. I mean, like even if I had drawn like more like Hallowed Fountains or something, I still wouldn't have been able to cast like the Flames of the Firebrand, and if I hadn't hit my 4th land, I wouldn't have been able to cast the 2 Jaces either. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But
how many lands are you playing out of curiosity?
I was playing 22.
Okay.
I think that was an okay number. I might up it to 23. I'm not sure. All right. So, Brian, overall, what did you think of your deck?
I was pretty happy with it overall. The mana actually felt very good.
Mm-hmm. Color-wise, it didn't seem like you had problems.
Right. Like I flooded out the one game, I was a little screwed the other game, but beyond that, color-wise, like I cast all my spells on time. I was very happy with all that. Anytime I had a Blood Crypt, it was amazing. Like I thought. So I was very happy with that. Deck as a whole, I was pretty happy with it. I liked it.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things about your deck is that I am very much willing to play like 24 to 20, like even 27 lands, something like that, because you have so many spells that not only have flashback but that have overload, so that if you hit any of your like floods like in the middle of the game or whatever, you still have a ton of stuff to do. It's not game over to flood out and hit 6 mana against like a deck like Delver, because that just means you get to overload your Mizzium Mourners, or like play your Bonfire for 3, or
if you Miracle Bonfire, it's just a blowout or something.
Exactly. So, and I think during Block Constructed, that was one of the bigger things that me and you found, was that the decks like any deck that has Lingering Souls in it really is just insanely mana hungry.
Right.
Like every turn you're just like tap out, tap out, tap out.
Yeah. These black, white, red token decks in block all play 25, and then the black, green, white ones play 27.
Yeah.
Or a lot of them play 26, but I always wanted to play 27. Sometimes 28 lands.
Yeah, we got up there for a while. Like like every tournament I wanted to add another land.
Yeah.
And what are you gonna do? But so I liked my deck in theory. Obviously, it's not very good against tokens because I have so much spot removal, and cards like Sleep and Jace aren't necessarily worth it because they make your deck much slower, less reliable. I felt like my draws in a couple of the games were not great, but also I just always felt like I was kind of at a disadvantage against Lingering Souls, the card. Without something like War and Peace, I'm not sure if Delver has the capacity to beat a Lingering Souls deck, at least consistently, and I think that's the big part of it.
I mean, I actually think that there is that opportunity, and I think we saw it in the first game when you blew me out with Flames of the Firebrand.
Right, and maybe it just means that we need to play 4 Flames of the Firebrand.
Right, and Flames or Bonfire, or both of them, that could be how you beat tokens.
Yeah, I actually really like Flames over Bonfire in this kind of deck, and I think that there were a few blue-red Delver decks that were cropping up for a while that played a lot of Flames of the Firebrand over Bonfire, because Flames of the Firebrand can just kill a 3/3. Like if they play a 3 power guy, or even like a 2/2 and a 1/1, you can just blow them out for 3 mana, whereas Bonfire can only kill X1s for 3 mana unless you randomly get to Miracle. And now that we don't have Ponder, we can't set up Miracles very easily. So just playing a bunch of Flames of the Firebrand and Snapcaster Mages to do it again on turn 5, maybe that's just where the deck needs to go. And I think that definitely playing white, regardless of whether or not you play red, is important, because Geist of Saint Traft is the only good threat left.
Right, you have to play Geist. And it may even be possible that you want to just go all in on Geist. Maybe you want Stalker, Geist, and Spectral Flight.
Yeah, actually, I had Spectral Flight in my board, but since you had so many flying tokens, I didn't think it would be that good.
Right.
But maybe just forcing you to chump block over and over and over again is what I have to do, because it's really you have to have a Virtue and 2 flyers in play, and me not have a removal spell for you to be able to trade with a Spectral Flight on a Geist.
And I actually think Spectral Flight's fine even on like a Knight of Glory.
Right.
Like it's 5 points of damage attacking.
Yeah. I mean, you do have a lot of removal though. Like Mizzy Mortars itself can kill like pretty much any guy with a Spectral Flight on it, except for Geist of Saint Traps. So
Right.
Spectral Flight's kind of dangerous to put on anything that doesn't have hexproof. So, but overall, bad matchup for Delver. Good matchup for Black Red White, you think?
Yep, I think it's a good matchup for Black.
Really looking forward to seeing some new cards that are returned to Ravnica. We'll be back next week with hopefully a couple of new standard decks using some new cards.
Yep,
and
hopefully
trying some new stuff out.
Spoiled by then.
But I mean, we have a whole week full of spoilers between now and then, and I guess something like 2 weeks of spoilers before you guys even see the video, right?
Yeah, exactly. So this may be old news by then. But
hopefully not.
Hopefully not.
Yeah. But guys, we really appreciate you watching today. This is Todd Anderson signing off alongside
Braun-Duin.
Thanks guys. Y'all have a good day.